The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering co-op advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte.
Later in the show, a royal performance from the grandson of the king of cumbia here in the studio. Secret Planet brings Yeison Landeros to the Drake tonight, and he joins us later in the show.
Starting that show off will be Dj Bongohead, a.k.a. Pablo Yglesias of Peace and Rhythm Records, who will give us a little more context for the genre of cumbia and the Landeros family place in it.
But first, we turn to Capitol Hill, where the turn of the calendar year has been a flurry of activities.
Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Is it too late to say that now that we're already into the first week here? I don't know, maybe. Are you excited about all the things that 2025 has in store for us?
No.
Time for our weekly chat with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Worcester's own Congressman Jim McGovern. And before we get into what may be happening with the next president of the United States, today is a national day of mourning in honor of a previous president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, who passed away at age 100. Were you part of the lying in state or any of the funeral processions or ceremonies that have gone on?
I was at the Capitol the day before yesterday when he arrived. I again paid my respects yesterday. I was hoping to go to the funeral today, but the Republicans are bringing up a bill to sanction the International Criminal Court, and so I have to handle that on the floor. So if they postpone that, or if they can change the timing, I will go. But I have a great respect for Jimmy Carter, and I was happy to be part of a group that honored him when he arrived at the Capitol.
Did you know the former president? Did you work with him at all in your time in Congress? I mean, you were not a congressman when he was president, but these people...
No, I met him a couple of times, but I really didn't know him, as well as I got to know Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or even Joe Biden. But he had an amazing legacy, and he was a president who elevated the issue of human rights. He did a lot of stuff that I think people have forgotten. He appointed the most black judges, federal judges, of all the previous presidencies combined. People forget he came from Georgia, where his father was a segregationist, but became a champion for civil rights. The Camp David Accords were a major breakthrough in establishing peace between Israel and Egypt. And, he, like every president, they encounter bumps in the road, and he only served one term. But he probably goes down in history as the greatest ex-president in history, where he actually dedicated his life not to making money and being on corporate boards, but to Habitat for Humanity, to fighting to eliminate diseases and, some of the most poor and vulnerable parts of the world. I have a great deal of respect for him.
There's a beautiful story in the Daily Hampshire Gazette today about how Pioneer Valley Habitat for Humanity has honored Jimmy Carter. And one of the ongoing building projects that they have right now with a giant picture of Jimmy Carter in place of where a door would be. And it is a national day of mourning for the former president today. And we're speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern. Congressman Richard Neal, your colleague, was attending a White House signing ceremony for the Social Security Fairness Act earlier this week. Max Page from Amherst, the president of the MTA, was part of that ceremony. Were you part of that ceremony? And if not, how will that bipartisan bill affect members of your district?
Well, I mean, as you know, when Reagan was president, they put into place a change in the law that basically penalized your Social Security if you paid into another retirement system, like in Massachusetts. So a lot of people in Massachusetts, a lot of teachers, firefighters, police officers, when they retire, they get less of their Social Security. And many of us have thought that was very unfair. So we launched a discharge petition because Speaker Johnson wouldn't bring it up, and the Ways and Means Committee, run by Republicans, wouldn't bring it up. And we get over 218 members of the House to sign it. And that forced a vote on the bill on the House floor, and it passed. And then at the very last minute of the last session of Congress, Chuck Schumer brought it to the Senate floor, and it passed, and it became law. And a lot of people didn't think it could happen. but it did. And so a lot of people who were adversely impacted will see a little bit more money in their Social Security check. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's better than a tax cut for billionaires and millionaires or big corporations.
And it is interesting that it was done in a bipartisan fashion. There was another bill this week that passed the House in a bipartisan fashion, the Laken-Riley Act. This comes from the Washington Post. The House passed a measure that would require the detention of any undocumented immigrant charged with theft or burglary as its first piece of legislation in the new Congress. This past Tuesday afternoon, the Laken-Riley Act, named after a nursing student who was killed in February by a man in the country illegally, passed 264-159 with the support of all voting Republicans and 48 House Democrats. You were not one of those House Democrats. Why did you vote against the Laken-Riley Act?
Because it was a crappy bill. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, look, we were getting calls from my office that this was about deporting murderers and rapists. Because Laken-Riley sadly was murdered by an undocumented immigrant. And no, that is the law already on the books. What this bill would do is it would go after immigrants, for shoplifting or for stealing, but it would expand the definition to include people who are here on student visas, people who are TPS recipients, people who are protected under DACA. And the deal is you don't have to be convicted of the crime to be deported. You just have to be charged and arrested for the crime. And, you can see a situation where, there's mistaken identity, or that, a DACA kid is scapegoated for something, and, they find out later that was the case. That person could be deported and separated from their family. There's no due process. Now, I think there was an opportunity to try to fix this, but the leadership here brought it to the floor under a closed rule, and so there was no opportunity for debate or amendments.
And so what you're essentially saying is that what people are seeing in the media about this being strictly about theft or burglary is a little bit of a spin, because those laws are already on the books?
They are, but again, we also have a thing in this country called due process. I mean, I can say that you committed a crime, but you may not have, and there's a process to be able to determine that. And so, if you committed the crime, fine, you should suffer the consequences. But what if you didn't? And again, the spin is that the people we're talking about are people who just crossed the border or have no legal status. Some of them fall in that category, but people with student visas, people with, people who are farm workers who work on our farms, people who, again, kids who are protected under the DACA, or people who have temporary protected status. So look, we need to fix our immigration laws. We need to tighten this up. But this was a stunt. And again, I think you're gonna see a lot of this, which is basically distraction, so that nobody is holding Donald Trump accountable for his promises to lower the price of groceries, or to lower the price of gas, or to improve our economy. So it is important that when we pass laws, that we do so in a thoughtful and intelligent manner. It is important that we pass laws that don't result in unintended consequences, and it's important that we get it right. We're entering a period now where everything is about demagoguery, and I think it's a very, very dangerous time in our history. And today, we're going to bring up a bill to sanction the International Criminal Court for their bringing charges against the Netanyahu government. And they're bringing up a bill, again, that cannot be amended, that would not only punish the International Criminal Court and all those who support it, and the way it's written, it can include even the cafeteria workers who provide food to the people who work there, but also it will punish countries, including our allies, that would support the International Criminal Court. And again, it's another example of demagoguery that we're going to see brought to the House floor time and time again, leading up to Trump taking the oath of office. But this is not the way we should legislate. And I get it, people have strong feelings, but we should be more thoughtful about how we approach these very difficult subjects.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, Gaza is a difficult subject that we've been discussing now for over a year. And once again, some of our favorite questioners for the McGoverning with McGovern segment have weighed in. First, from Pocky Whelan, more of a comment for you, Congressman, and it's a glowing one. That's where we'll start. On Wednesday, Congressman McGovern's appearance on Democracy Now! Was the best. You covered the Democracy Now!, the radio show hosted by Amy Goodman. It's on our affiliate WMUA. NEPM is makes it possible to have Democracy Now! On WMUA out of UMass. I love hearing that every time I listen to Democracy Now! Anyway, you covered the waterfront from the Leahy law to the exoneration of Ethel Rosenberg to pardon for Danziger. You hit it out of the ballpark, even getting in a call to end hunger. Good work. Hope you watch Democracy Now! Even when you're not on. Thanks, Pocky. It was a good time with Amy Goodman the other day.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Amy Goodman. But no, that we covered a lot because it's not like a quick hit. It's you're on for 15 minutes or so. But I was also on with Robert Mearpaul.
Oh yeah,
talking about our appeal to Biden to exonerate, to pardon, to apologize for what happened to his mother and
Ethel Rosenberg.
And Ethel Rosenberg, great. And we played a role in supporting his request, Freedom of Information Act request, to get the National Security Agency to declassify a document that basically said, again, this was from the chief analyst and encryptor at the NSA. This was a week after she was arrested. They said, that there's no evidence that she was involved in any of this, and nonetheless she was executed along with her husband. And again, it's important that we get our history right. And I hope that President Biden will act accordingly. But the whole pardon process is kind of secretive. All you can do is weigh in and press. You just don't know where it is on their list. But I hope he does the right thing.
In conjunction with some of the things that you talked about on Democracy Now!, specifically Gaza, Nick Mottern, who is one of the activists from Demilitarized Western Mass, says that on December 17th, you made the statement, "I come to the House floor to send one straightforward message to President Biden. Providing U.S. arms and military aid to the Netanyahu government for use in Gaza violates U.S. law." Now the president, Nick says, totally ignoring your statement, has announced that he's sending $8 billion more weapons to the Netanyahu government, $8 billion more in weapons that will be shipped without congressional approval or objection. He questions that in an effort to stop U.S. support for genocide, would you consider, as the ranking Democrat on the House Rules Committee, calling on the Capitol Hill police to arrest members of Congress who have voted for weapons to Israel in 2024? He says that he thinks that there is would be legal under the Constitution to call the Capitol Hill police for this, violating U.S. law. He's also added that he is in the midst of a semi-hunger strike in support of the people of Gaza, along with Reverend Peter Kakos and other members of their committee on a dawn-to-dusk liquids-only fast in support of the Palestinian people, and has been for coming up on a month now. Are you willing to call the Capitol Hill police, as Nick Mottern has requested?
I respect Nick and I respect the suggestion, but I don't think that is an action that I would take. I mean, look, I am trying to encourage the Biden administration to withhold aid, and at this late stage, I mean, because Trump is coming in next, basically to send a signal to Netanyahu that human rights have to matter. And that's where my focus is going to be. Today, I'm going to lead the debate against the resolution sanctioning the ICC. I think that's the right thing to do. I think I will lose on that. But here's the deal. I mean, Donald Trump at his press conference, I think yesterday or the day before, basically said if all the hostages are not released by the time he's inaugurated, all hell will break loose in Gaza. Well, all hell has broken loose in Gaza a long time ago. So I don't know how much worse it can be, but he's promising to make it worse. And so we are going to have to figure out ways legislatively to try to curtail his ability to go beyond what's already happening. Look, there's no easy answers here. I wish if I could call for people to be arrested, that would somehow it would solve the problem. It would fall on deaf ears. I have no standing to do that, and the Capitol Police would not follow my direction on that. But that is not to say that we are in compliance with our own law. I believe very strongly, and I said that on the House floor a couple of weeks ago, that we are in violation of our own laws. I mean, so we don't need to pass a new law to suspend aid. We just need to enforce the laws that we have on the books. And one of those laws says that if you frustrate the delivery of humanitarian aid to people in need, in this case, to the people, the Palestinians in Gaza, then you are not eligible to receive additional military assistance. It is so clear what's happening. I've talked to people at World Central Kitchen. I've talked to people at the UN. I've talked to people from every human rights group you can imagine. The people right now in Gaza are not only dying from being bombed, they're dying from starvation, and they're dying from sicknesses that, quite frankly, can be treated and can be prevented. And so I think we need to think of a different approach here. But I appreciate the suggestion. I just don't think that that's the action that is most appropriate for me to take.
Coming up, more with Congressman McGovern as we learn all of the folks who won presidential medals of freedom that he got to meet and interact with.
And then live music Thursday with the heir to cumbia Yeison Landero playing at the Drake in Amherst tonight.
And a quick cumbia history lesson to boot with DJ Bongohead of Peace and Rhythm Records.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, McGoverning with McGovern, we are in the waning days of the Biden administration, and in one of his final acts, he awarded several presidential medals of freedom over the weekend to some interesting folks, to Secretary Hillary Clinton, who I know you know, Michael J. Fox. Did you get to meet him?
I did. I said hello to him. I had a chance to just chat briefly.
Bono?
But I was. Yeah.
Did you meet Bono?
I talked to Bono. I did. I talked to Bono. I've met him before.
Whoa, one Irishman to another.
Yeah, so it was great.
Okay, I'm going to keep running down the list of the people that I was interested in winning that. Bill Nye the Science Guy. Did you meet Bill Nye the Science Guy?
I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I got a chance to see him.
And the one that I know that you met with and you lauded on your social media is somebody who I was lucky enough to meet at the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, is Chef Jose Andres from World Central Kitchen, who also received the Presidential Medal of Freedom over the weekend, in somewhat of an irony, I think, because members of World Central Kitchen were killed by U.S. bombs trying to feed the people of Gaza. So while Jose Andres, the chef and the leader of World Central Kitchen, is receiving an award from the President of the United States who authorized those bombs, were things like that brought up during that ceremony? Is that how those ceremonies go? Or what was the chef's take on receiving that medal after receiving such a tragedy in his organization?
Well, a couple of things. I was honored to be there, and I was there because I was Jose's guest. So that was the reason why I was there. But there's not a lot of back and forth. It's someone reads a proclamation, and the president puts a medal around your neck, and then there's some, then there's a little reception afterwards. But I do know that Jose, cares deeply about what's happening, and he's heartbroken over what has happened to the staff of World Central Kitchen. And I know he's weighed in with the Biden administration. I think that he's been asked to receive this medal on a number of occasions previously and has kind of respectfully declined because of what's going on. But, he has done a great deal, and he has actually had a lot more access to the White House to be able to weigh in, to give them his views of what's going on. But, again, the fact that we can't get food into people who are starving to death in Gaza is a tragedy. And, one of the points I'm going to make on the floor today in opposition to this resolution to sanction the ICC is that, we all want to avoid wars. Wars are terrible. But if there are wars that occur, there are rules of war. There are rules of war. And when those rules are violated, that's where the International Criminal Court comes in and says, you have to stop or there's a consequence. And so the ICC has issued arrest warrants, not just for Netanyahu, but for the leaders of Hamas. I mean, this is not just focusing on Israel. It's focusing on all players that are responsible for the victimization of so many innocent civilians. Children need to be protected. Innocent people need to be protected. Medical facilities need to be protected, even in times of war. And if you don't follow those rules, then there's an accounting. And so, again, what is happening, in the Middle East is terribly, terribly tragic. I would like to be able to say that I see a clear pathway to get us to a different stage, but I'm fearful based on Donald Trump's rhetoric what might be coming next.
U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, you were the last person on the floor of the House of Representatives on January 6th, 2021, when then Vice President Pence certified the election of Joe Biden. January 6th, 2025 has just passed. There was no violence on the floor. There was no violence in the capital region because, as you said on social media, we respect the results of the election even though we disagree with them. And Vice President Kamala Harris, who lost this most recent election, did her constitutional duty without hesitation, as Mike Pence did, and certified that election. And we have returned to some semblance of normalcy when it comes to the peaceful transfer of power. That being said, January 20th, Martin Luther King Day, is Inauguration Day. Your colleague from the Massachusetts delegation at the U.S. House, Ayanna Pressley, has announced that she will not be attending the inauguration. Do you have plans on attending the inauguration of Donald Trump on January 20th?
I do. I want to vomit, but I will be there because I respect the tradition of the transfer of power. You know, I criticized Donald Trump quite fiercely, and he didn't show up to Joe Biden's inauguration. And I criticized my Republican colleagues as well, who boycotted the inauguration. I mean, I just don't think that is I don't think that is the right thing to do. I mean, I'm sickened and heartbroken that Donald Trump is president of the United States, and I'm going to fight him, every opportunity I have, because I believe he's going to try to bring things to the House floor that are quite frankly against the values of the people I represent. But for me, I think it's important that we honor the peaceful transfer of power. And and as I said to a reporter, we're not them. We're not them. I respect people who are not going to go, and I love Ayanna Pressley, and so she's one of my heroes here in Congress. And I understand, and I thought about doing something similar. But for me, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to, again, probably be sick to my stomach, but I'm going to let them know that I'm not afraid of them, and I'm not intimidated by them, and I'm ready for this fight.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, the ranking member of the Rules Committee. We're going to get more into the details of the inauguration next week on the show. If you've got a question for the Congressman, you can send it my way to thefab413@nepm.org, and I will ask the Congressman on your behalf. Thanks as always, Congressman.
All the best. Thanks.
That's a lot to start the year with, so if you're feeling the weight of McGovern's words, we'll bring you a bit of lightness with cumbia from Yeison Landero playing the Drake tonight.
And DJ Bongohead gives us a quick rundown of cumbia and its worldwide impact next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, homegrown in Hatfield, Massachusetts, and providing energy savings for their customers for over 10 years. Learn more at northeast-solar.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering weekly lesson programs for kids, teens, and adults at every skill level. Registration available at skisundown.com. Winter made better.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Tonight, Secret Planet presents Yeison Landero at the Drake in Amherst. Yeison is the grandson of the king of cumbia, Andres Landero. And although that's a lot of accolades for a genre of music you may not be familiar with.
So to help us with a bit of context is the man who'll be opening tonight's show at the Drake, our friend DJ Bongohead, a.k.a. Pablo Yglesias. Pablo is one of the founders of Peace and Rhythm Records. He has thrilled us with his endless enthusiasm and knowledge of global funkiness. As a writer and historian, he's informed us on many musical subjects, from Latin and funk to jazz and punk, via the likes of Wax Poetics, his Rough Guides overviews, and more.
The author-curator of Cocinando, 50 Years of Latin album cover art. He also regularly spins vinyl as DJ Bongohead and works in the field of art and graphic design. His compilation series, The Afro Sound of Colombia, has helped helped relaunch a worldwide focus on the riches of Colombian music, and he'll open up the show at the Drake this evening for Yeison Landero. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I want you guys to be my press agents.
We're going to be your hype man. Everybody ready? It's DJ Bongohead.
I'm a little embarrassed by that long list of things you attribute to me.
Well, you better be good tonight. That's all I have to say. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no. I've been looking forward to this concert with Yeison Landero and his group for, I don't know, ever since I was told that I was going to be on it.
Yeah.
So months and months. Been looking forward to this.
And it is part of Secret Planet, which our friend Ido Moore is kind of behind, and it brings people from all over the globe here to Western Massachusetts. It's sort of like a subscription service or a farm share, if you want to think about it like that, where you pay in advance, and then you can go to incredible shows like the one at the Drake tonight. Or if you're not part of Secret Planet, there's still you can still go to this show tonight.
You can just drop in. I mean, the tickets have been selling really well, but there are some tickets left over. So if you're a walk-in, come on down. I start spinning at 7. I think Yeison goes on at 8, a las 8.
Más o menos.
Más o menos. As we say, vamos a ver. We'll see.
Colombiano tiempo, sí?
Yeah, we're going to make sure people are dancing and all excited, and then he'll hit the stage. And yesterday was their first of this current tour in New York, and I saw some footage, and it looked super hot, incredible. Everybody was going crazy, so I know that's going to happen again tonight.
I mean, all the footage that I've seen of Yeison has been really energetic and super fun. So it's going to be really cool, regardless.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, talk to us a little bit more about cumbia and some of cumbia's origins, because cumbia is everywhere,
right.
but in Colombia, it's a special thing.
Yeah, because it grew. It was born in Colombia, it could go back perhaps hundreds of years, but wasn't really documented until, say, the beginning of the 1900s. But it's a rhythm, it's a dance, it's a culture, and the thing about Colombia is it has many different rhythms, many different genres of music. Not only the cumbia that comes from Colombia, but many others that also have their origins in Colombia. And when we say origins in Colombia, we have to think about the African and indigenous roots, with then some other things added from European traditions. So there's many different kinds of cumbia in modern times, because it's very adaptable. It has, the rhythm has to be the same. But what's amazing, what's made it an international phenomenon, is that every country can put their own stamp on it. For instance, when I was a kid and I lived in Mexico for a while, I thought the cumbia came from Mexico because it was hugely popular there. This is the late 60s, early 70s, and you just heard cumbia everywhere. And there were bands in Mexico playing cumbia. So I just figured it was, I didn't know. Then later, I learned about how it kind of, traveled and grew. And many Colombian musicians, especially accordion players, like the tradition that Yeison is from, came from Colombia directly to Mexico, and also to the United States in the Southwest. For instance, Aniceto Molina was an accordion player, came both to Mexico and the United States to play accordion cumbias, and influenced a whole swath of populations. But also in Peru, they have their own specific kind that is getting popular now with electric guitar and organ and stuff like that. And Argentina has its own kind. There's a lot of very modern digital cumbia, you could call it, or
there's punk cumbia.
There's cumbia that is punk. Our friends from Mexico who have been through here son rompepera. So many different kinds of cumbia, but it just has to have the rhythm. And there's no real reason for me to get technical about that, because you're going to hear these guys
but
play the rhythm.
What's cool about the rhythm, though, is that it sounds like a gallop of a horse, right? Am I correct about that? That's where the rhythm came from, to approximate the sound of a gallop of a horse?
Que el ritmo venía del ritmo de los caballos. Eso, I don't know.
No.
That's how I know if I'm listening to a cumbia. Like, I'll be listening to music,
okay,
and
but
if
you're
it sounds
imagining.
like I'm on a horse, I'm like, oh, this is cumbia.
That's your tell. I don't know if that's historically accurate.
¿Viene del sonido del caballo o no? El ritmo.
Yo creo que el ritmo viene del sonido de la tierra.
The sound of the earth.
Naturaleza.
Yeah.
Nature.
De las
Nature.
aves,
Yeah.
Birds.
Nosotros decimos de la tierra que canta.
El
El
corazón.
sentimiento del corazón está relacionado con el llamador. En
Ajá.
la cumbia siempre
The drum,
tenemos el tum,
the llamador drum.
tum, tum.
Like
Y
the
yo
heartbeat.
siento que ese es el corazón de la cumbia, es el sentimiento ahí de esa tierra que canta.
The heart of the cumbia is that feeling of the earth that sings.
Uh-huh. So I won't
So
just
then
think about it as a
nature.
horse anymore.
That's
I'll
okay.
expand
I
my
mean,
definition.
you wouldn't be wrong. I mean, there's a famous photograph of Yeison's grandfather Andres Landero on a horse, on horseback. There's another one of
And
another.
that's where he discovered cumbia. No, I'm just kidding. Now making up extra history.
But there's another one, Alfredo Gutiérrez en caballo también, montado así. But the thing is it's just to point out the rural
Yeah.
traditions, the campesino traditions, and the various feelings that the songs evoke with nature, and riding a horse could be part of that.
That's for sure.
Speaking of Andres Landero, like riding horse, let's actually talk about Andres Landeros' place in cumbia also, because
Very
he was
important.
connected with a group we had on last year, Los Galleteros de San Jacinto.
Yes.
And then
From the same San Jacinto, from
Right.
the same place.
and starts evolving some of those melodies that we hear on the gaita onto accordion, and then like everything kind of explodes from there.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about.
The cumbia itself had a lot of help from the Colombian government in the 40s and 50s, and
Wait, you mean government-supported arts work?
well, there's a very pointed, shall we say, something that they're trying to achieve behind it. In this case, it was like a unity of there was a civil war, and so there's an agenda that the government has, which is saying cumbia is our music, and it's the uniting of the black and the white and the Caribbean and the indigenous and everything all together. And so it was really promoted by the music industry. But then that's when they started adding other elements like a brass section and from the jazz bands and things like that. But yeah, San Jacinto is definitely one of the original places, and to point of fact that Andres Landero was very good friends with all of the people in the Gaiteros de San Jacinto, and Andres' father himself was a gaita or flute player. So yes, all those traditional pre-accordion, pre-brass, even pre-guitar, just basically drum and flute and singing and dancing. That's the real origin. It's kind of like, if you listen to salsa, well, rumba, the Cuban rumba of drumming and dancing and singing with its African origins is basically like the roots of that. So similar kind of thing. Yeah.
And now it's expanded to the point where you're saying it's gone from accordion to all the way up to electronic music nowadays, but still with that same
Still has to have the
driving
rhythm.
Right?
Exactly, and there's hybrids where they might mix in salsa or they might mix in a particular instrument that's associated with a different country, or even change the language. Right now, we have a rock and roll guy from California, Chuck Prophet, and he's backed by a cumbia band. They're coming to the Iron Horse.
Yeah, we're working on getting him in here to do that too.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to that show. But mainly because I want to see the band that's backing him. Quien sabe se llama Quien sabe is the band. But anyhow, so I mean the cumbia is less it's complex, but the rhythm is less complex than, let's say, the Cuban rumba. So I think a lot of people who are not used to Latin music can first enter through something like the cumbia or the bolero, let's say, something that they might have already been introduced to without even realizing it. And so tonight, for instance, you don't have to do special cumbia steps. I mean, yeah, there are, specific dance moves you can do, but you can also just like sway and ride your horse or whatever.
I'm going to ride my horse.
I don't think they want you to ride your horse into the Drake. I think that's a terrible idea.
I'm going to ride my mythical, like Monty Python style horse.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
my
good.
coconuts
Bring
and all
your
that.
coconuts.
Your unicorn.
My unicorn, yeah. Oh, God. And that is Pablo Yglesias, a.k.a. DJ Bongohead, who will be opening up the show at the Drake tonight, where we will see some cumbia history in action with the grandson of Andres Andres Landero, who we were just mentioning, one of the founders of cumbia, with his grandson Yeison Landero and band. Should we take a little break
and then we can actually hear some cumbia?
Yeah.
You can find out for yourself if it sounds like it's riding a horse when we come back.
Oh my God! You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. We are not endorsing the horse thing.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering graduate programs in public affairs, public policy and administration, data analytics, and computational social science. umass.edu/SPP. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family-owned and operated complete exterior remodeling business offering windows, siding, gutters, and more. windowworldofwesternma.com.
Dos canciones, por favor. Yeah.
Dos canciones.
Can we talk a little and then
Sí.
one more?
Sí. Hablando todo y play. We're going to Spanglish this on the Fabulous 413 with DJ Bongohead and Yeison Landero, who is the grandson of the king of cumbia from Colombia, Andres Landero. But we also have the son of Andres Landero, who's playing the instrument that may bring the horse sounds that I have been referencing to the sound here. We'll see. They are playing at the Drake in Amherst tonight. It's part of Secret Planet, which you can sign up to and experience music from all over the world here in the neighborhoods where you live. But you can just show up as well if you come tonight to the Drake.
So, Yeison Landero was born in San Jacinto in the very heart of the mountains, Maria of our Colombian Caribbean. Inheriting a love for cumbia and the accordion, Yeison became the most appreciated disciple of his grandfather at the age of 7.
His first group was created by Andres Landero himself, presented next to the king of cumbia. Yeison Landero and his sister were introduced as Los Nietos de Andres Landero, touring throughout Colombia to perform cumbia.
Yeison later went on to study music at Bellas Artes and concluded his law degree at the University of Cartagena, but his love for his ancestral accordion and a passion for cumbia were so great that he returned to the music that made him, releasing his album Landero Vive as a posthumous tribute to his grandfather's immortal legacy.
He's performed at the Kennedy Center and the Lincoln Center. It's been nominated for several Latin Grammys and spread the culture and sound of cumbia regionally, nationally, and clearly internationally, as well as collaborating with authors and fellow musicians to bring the sound and story of cumbia to all corners of the globe.
Presented by Secret Planet and playing tonight at the Drake in Amherst at 8 p.m. Please welcome to the show, Yeison Landero.
Bueno, desde Springfield, un saludo a todos los que nos escuchan acá en Massachusetts. Venimos desde Colombia, Caribe colombiano, San Jacinto, con el sonar de los tambores, de la guacharaca, de la gaita, a ritmo de cumbia. Esta canción dedicada a los campesinos del mundo y nominada a los Grammy Latinos 2020. Campesino cimarrón que viene de la montaña, labrando con tu sudor, tu tierra con la esperanza, que al limpiar bien la parcela, todas las semillas también te nazcan. Si la cabañuela es buena, si cae la lluvia, es fiesta en la plaza. fiesta fue buena, el verano ya se ha ido. Yo voy con café y panela, monto en un burro mojino, a recoger la cosecha. María y Tomasa se van conmigo. Agárrense la pollera que ya voy a vender mi cultivo. Que está muy cerca, ya vienen las navidades y los hijos míos que esperan que lleguen muchos detalles. En esta fiesta bonita voy a reunir a mis amistades, con ron, comida y esperma, bailando cumbia, no hay quien me pare. Te la canta. Baila la cumbia, ¡viva la cumbia!
Woo!
That's so awesome!
Yeison Landero and his band are playing at the Drake in Amherst tonight, bringing cumbia to Amherst, Massachusetts. And Yeison brought his own hype man. We were talking about being DJ Bongohead's hype man, but no, part of the song was hyping up Yeison Landero and the Landero name in the middle of the song and cumbia itself, which is so great.
It's always nicer. Estaba tocando hasta tiene 7 años. Sí. ¿Siempre estaba acordeón o otros instrumentos también?
Khalees wants to know if Yeison Landero has been playing since 7 years old. Has he always been playing the accordion, or was there another instrument as well?
El primer instrumento que recibí, porque tuve la oportunidad que mi abuelo Andrés Landero, nací y crecí en San Jacinto Bolívar al lado de él, fue el acordeón, fue el primer instrumento que él me regaló a edad de 7, 8 años. Y desde ese momento, pues, comencé a interpretarlo y aprender de él su música.
Okay, so yeah, he said basically the first instrument was the accordion that his grandfather gave him, and that's how he really started to learn everything.
Pero siempre teníamos en casa pues otros instrumentos,
but there were
como
other
la guacharaca, mi tío Javier, pues siempre, y también pues aprendemos a tocarlos porque es la oportunidad también de poder entender cómo es todo el ritmo de la cumbia.
To integrate the whole thing.
Por el llamador, el tambor, la guacharaca.
They had all the other instruments, the percussion instruments in the house, as well as the gaita. También la flauta de mí o lo que sea.
Yeah. Okay. La gaita fue ese instrumento originario de nuestra región, netamente indígena, hecho por mano de los campesinos. Mi bisabuelo fue gaitero.
His great-grandfather was a gaita player.
Mi abuelo hizo parte también de la agrupación de los gaiteros de San Jacinto en esa época. Interpretaba el llamador, uno de los tambores. Hicieron giras nacional y hicieron parte de ese primer ballet folclórico que viajó por 2 años y medio a Europa y Asia, sembrando la semilla de la cumbia en los años 50.
In the 50s, his grandfather traveled with the Gaiteros de San Jacinto Asia and Europe on a world tour for 2 years with the National Dance Troupe.
Conoce este instrumento, él mismo dice que se embruja, tenía él edad de 18 años cuando compra su primer acordeón y de ahí todo ese sonido de las gaitas, de los tambores, es lo que él transforma en lo que hoy conocemos como cumbia campesina de Andrés Landero, ya utilizando pues otros instrumentos como la guacharaca en vez de las maracas, la caja, la tumbadora, o en esa época que reemplazaba el tambor alegre, incorpora un bajo electrónico. Y nuestro proyecto actualmente, Yeison Landero, lo que hizo fue unir esas dos grandes tradiciones de San Jacinto, y tenemos en vivo una gaita que lleva toda esa tradición de nuestro ritmo y la cumbia en acordeón.
Yeah, so he's saying that when they play live, they're going to do an example of what his grandfather, Andres Landero, did back in his career of uniting the two traditions of this folkloric background of the drums and the gaita flute, but also, modern aspects like the electric bass and the tumbadora, the conga, perhaps instead of what we have here, the caja, which is more of a not that traditional either, because has a certain modern aspect to it too. It's a drum with a plastic top and all that. But you're gonna be experiencing when you see Yeison live, both of these traditions, a sort of ancient traditional and the sort of modern popular version that his grandfather helped pioneer, coming together in the concert.
And that concert,
and that's what they're doing here, too.
Is tonight at the Drake in Amherst, and it will be opened up by DJ Bongohead, who is very kindly acting as translator here for Yeison Landero.
Well, trying. He has a lot of things to say.
No, but you're doing great. You're doing wonderful.
Es que tú tienes muchas cosas que hablar, de decir. Yo tratando un poquito de traducirlo, pero,
You're doing great.
Okay, yeah, let's see.
You're filling in all the blanks that I can't fill in my own brain, so thank you. I'm curious, you've got two Landero family members here who are part of this iconic cumbia family, but there are other band members that are not Landeros. What does the name Landero mean to the greater community of non-Landeros who love this music?
¿Qué significa la comunidad más grande no solamente de la familia Landero, pero qué significa el nombre para los demás también?
¿Qué significa Andrés Landero para todos? Bueno, para nosotros es un símbolo de resistencia, de resiliencia. Landero fue un campesino que nació en los Montes de María y que encontró en la música la forma de él expresarse, de que lleva consigo el sentimiento de todo un territorio, de todo un pueblo, que convirtió en canciones lo que veía a diario en sus amigos, en la naturaleza, el canto de las aves. Fue un campesino hasta sus últimos días, y yo creo que él lleva consigo, y lo que lleva es el mensaje de todo un sentimiento que ya no solamente es San Jacinto ni Colombia, sino que ya es un sentimiento latinoamericano. Es que nos une a todos, nos une a Argentina, a Chile, a México, a Perú, y que también nos alegra mucho que personas ejemplos como tan lejanos que quizás mi abuelo nunca pensó que pasara, como John Strummer de la banda de Clash, tomara canciones de él y dijera, oye, escucho esto, y se inspirara para uno de los álbumes más icónicos de él en el punk. Y entonces vemos cómo un campesino pudo llevar un mensaje que ha trascendido fronteras, pero que lo más importante nos une a todos en un mismo sentimiento.
Good luck summarizing that, DJ Bongohead.
But in a way it makes sense, because basically what he's saying is that though his grandfather comes from the campesino background, the sort of common person, the peasant, the person from the country, he is a symbol of resistance. And because he sang of the value of his own culture and his own environment and the love of his people and his world, his place that he comes from, this really struck a chord in people around the world, because this isn't like a pretentious or false kind of pop music. It's really like from the heart and of the common person, so that everybody can understand it. And it basically unified all of Latin America. I have to say, like, the way I first found out about Andres Landero was from a Lowrider Cumbias compilation from Los Angeles, de los chicanos, de la música que los chicanos les gustan.
Yeah.
The kind of cumbia that they love. And there was this song, La Pava Congona, which happens to be about a specific bird from the region that Andres Landero's from. And it just blew my mind. That song was like so funky. I mean, it has appeal on many different levels. Not just about the folkloric level, but also just musically. Like, it had this bass and this drum, and it was like, wow, this is incredible. No wonder I can imagine that booming out of a lowrider car going down the boulevard, you know? Like, I mean, it has this immense power to it. So that's what he's saying, is that it appeals to everybody, but mainly, and of course, Joe Strummer was
of
basically
the Clash, yeah.
Joe Strummer of the Clash was all about the working class and supporting the common person and these universal musics that were not pretentious.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we should wrap up.
Yeah, let's
wrap
wrap
up and end with a song from Yeison Landero playing at the Drake this evening. So tomorrow on the show, we're going to be talking about the Williamstown Synth Fest at the Clark Museum, and also having a check-in with CJ Moody, who's opening Dry Humor for all of you non-drinkers out there interested in a non-alcoholic beverage. They're getting a brick-and-mortar store in East Hampton, hopefully by the end of the month, and we'll talk with them tomorrow. But right now, you can get ready to go see Yeison Landero at the Drake this evening, opened by DJ Bongohead, and we'll close with a song from them.
Gracias.
¿Listo para una canción?
Claro que sí. Lo bonito es que la cumbia es un sentimiento universal y se expresa y se baila como se siente.
Basically, it's a universal feeling, this cumbia, and you dance it how you feel, and you can express yourself naturally and not be worried about it. So, everybody out there in Radio Land, start dancing.
Y unos dobles de campana reflejan la tristeza de mi pueblo. Y unos dobles de campana reflejan la tristeza de mi pueblo. No acariciará la gaita, ya no sonará el cardón. No acariciará la gaita, ya no sonará el cardón. Y su ritmo se lo lleva guardado en su muerto corazón. Y su ritmo se lo lleva guardado en su muerto corazón. Tu gaita. Tu gaita. Tu gaita. ¡Epa! Bueno, con tu gaita muda, yo hay una zafra muy triste, te cantan cavando tu sepultura. Yo hay una zafra muy triste, te cantan cavando tu sepultura. Pero está tu repertorio lleno de tierna poesía, que la canta Maña Serpa y Antonio Juan y no la comejía. Que la canta Maña Serpa y Antonio Juan y no la comejía.